Okay, gentlemen, this is the point that I think a lot of people were really looking forward to. As much as we love seeing a great 3D film, this is a unique opportunity for us to be here with you gentlemen who, I don't think it's understating it to say that your actions that day helped change the course of the world for the better. And so we consider you heroes, and we're just honored to be here with you today. I guess I'll start with Mr. Marino. Sir, is there anything you'd want to say to us about your memories of Normandy or that day?
First of all, I want to thank each one of you from the bottom of my heart for coming here today and to help us veterans commemorate this day that we were probably destined to be part of that great liberation, the day, June 6, 1944. I always have felt be a great honor to tell probably some of your parents, now grandparents, that worked so hard on the home front to help us during the war. We thank you.
Mr. Bearden, I know you wrote this great book, which I should mention to everybody is going to be out there in the lobby if you wanted to get a copy of it, but it's called To D-Day and Back, and it's a stellar book. And sir, is there anything you'd want just to start off with to tell us about just anything about Normandy or your service during World War II?
Well, I can say without reservation that I was paid back many times shortly after all we've just seen on television, because that's when I landed at the University of Texas and started chasing the pretty girls. So America got even with me quick. And I spent the next 5 years, the most glorious days of my life, right here on the campus at the University of Texas, most of which was spent as a cheerleader.
Now, I'm sure some of you out there have some questions, and so I don't want to be the one doing all the talking, because I've had a chance to talk to these gentlemen before. But if you have a question, please raise your hand, and I'll repeat it for the microphone. So anybody out there? Yes, sir, right here. The question was, what age were you when you joined the Army? I'll start with Mr. Marino first. What age were you when you joined, and why did you join?
I was 17 years old. I volunteered. And the reason I did that was because of what I had seen in the movies. There was no TV at the time. And the newspapers of what Adolf Hitler was doing in Europe. And there was a group of us teenagers that kept up with the news that were coming from Europe. And we knew that sooner or later our country would be involved. And so we decided the best thing to do was to volunteer, join the armed forces before the draft got to us.
Sir, the question was, how old were you when you went in, and why? Why did you join?
I went in, I was 17, and I went in because I could make $1 every National Guard evening I spent with the unit in Dallas where I was raised. And so there was no question about it. I was proud of my country, but I was more proud of that $1 a day that I got. I was making 12 and a half cents an hour working at A and B grocery store.
I should mention that Mr. Bearden was in the Texas National Guard before the war even began. So, and you were 17. So were you still in high school when you joined the Guard, or just out of high school?
Oh yeah. I was in high school, And incidentally, never did graduate from high school, but I am a graduate of the University of Texas.
Next question, sir, way in the back up there.
How many jumps out of an actual airplane before June 6th that they have in training?
Sir, the question, because I know you were with the artillery. Mr. Bearden was a paratrooper, and the question was, how many jumps did you have in combat?
Actual airplane.
Out of an actual airplane before you made that jump at Normandy? Was that your first jump in combat or out of an airplane?
You had to make 5 jumps to get your wings, which I did at Fort Benning, Georgia. And I think maybe in Nebraska and a couple other places we made maneuver jumps. So Normandy was probably my 8th or 10th jump.
Next question. Yes, sir. And what was the second part? So the question was, how long was your basic training, and what rank were you when you left the service? Start with you, Mr. Marino. How long was your basic training?
Basic training lasted about 6 months,
All in all.
yeah, altogether.
And what was your rank when you got out?
When I left the Army, I was a PFC. Yes.
Mr. Bearden, same question. How long was your basic training, and what was your rank when you left the Army?
I had no basic training. I was in the Texas National Guard, and I got in that because I got $1 every time that I met with them. But I had no basic training. As a matter of fact, I was in an H Company, 144th Infantry, and we were giving basic training to the draftees that were coming in. So I never really made basic training myself. I was part of a military unit that was giving basic training to new inductees.
And what was your rank when you got out?
I got out.
Yes, sir. Sergeant?
You're looking at it.
There you go.
I made Buck Sergeant early on, and I made it 3 more times.
So I think you could say you did OJT, on-the-job training, to get ready. Next question. Yes, ma'am. Right there. Yes, ma'am.
Can we hear a little bit about Marino's experience on D-Day?
Absolutely. She wants to know, sir, what you did on D-Day, what your unit did and where you were, that sort of thing.
D-Day, I was with I was in the 2nd Infantry Division. On D-Day, I was in a special unit. Our mission was to deliver 105 ammunition to the artillery pieces that were coming in. But evidently, some of the artillery never made it to the beach. We waited with the ammunition, but we had to wait D-Day all day. Finally, on D-Day +1, the rest of the units came in, and we had to distribute the 105 ammo that was supposed to have been used on D-Day.
I just want to ask a quick question, gentlemen. Did you know the enormity of what D-Day was while it was happening, when it took place? When was it you realized how significant this was going to be? Start with you, Mr. Beard.
Well, they were telling us that all along about the significance of what a big deal it was. And but for me, it represented one more parachute jump that scared me to death. And we were ready, though. We were. It's like a high school football team that trains all summer long, and then finally comes September and you get your first game. Well, that was my first game, and it was a big one.
Sir, when was it that you realized the enormity of what D-Day was about? When did it sink into you?
Well, The Army never told us, the regular soldier, you know, the privates and PFCs, corporals and all, about D-Day or anything like that. All we were told were that we were getting prepared for an invasion of Normandy. We didn't realize what it was, we didn't know what it was going to be like until I would say a month before D-Day, we were in Northern Ireland, and we were sent to Scotland where we did some training. And then we realized that something big was, you know, going to happen. But as far as knowing about the invasion or D-Day, we were never. Of course, I know that they also knew, you know, but the regular soldiers were never aware of it.
Next question, anybody out there? Yes. Yes, sir, right here. The question, I'll start with you, Mr. Marino. Did your unit run into any sort of, as he said, big problem that interfered with your mission? Any sort of obstacles, that sort of thing?
As our LST, that's the Land Transport, headed towards the beach, the Germans, if you notice, they were up here, sitting up here. We were down here coming in from the ships, which they had us just like sitting ducks, you know. So it was really scary because they were shooting at everything that was coming up. And naturally, there was no way that we would try to escape or hide or anything like that. So it was really, I was really scared. You see bullets coming right by your head and all that. But you see the tracers, you can see the tracers coming at you, you know. But we managed somehow to evade all the problems that were coming up to us.
So the young man's question was, were there any obstacles that your unit had to face or overcome going into Normandy?
Was there any what?
Basically wants to know if there's anything that was difficult about Normandy. Maybe tell them about, maybe tell them, sir, about your jump that night.
Yeah, the parachute jump.
Can you elaborate a little bit for them, sir?
We were young and crazy, and this, I'm making $50 a month extra. So, you know, Dave, what you want me to do? $50. I've been raised during the Depression. I do most anything for $50 a month.
I'll say this, both of these men are being very humble about it, but I know with Mr. Bearden, when you jumped, you were separated from the rest of your men. And when you landed, you didn't know at first where you were, and you didn't even have anybody else around you. I'm sure that had to have been a little bit terrifying.
No, initially it was my war all by myself. I mean, I don't know where the rest of the guys went. The 19 men in my plane, I was pushing the stick. I was the last man out. And so I'm assuming they all went, because when I got to the door, there was nobody there. I went, that's probably the only reason I went out.
Yes, sir, a question.
I would like to tell everybody that I've read this book, and it's really, really good. And I got this book because Coach Royal and his wife gave it to me. Mm-hmm. And when they gave it to us, I noticed that Mr. Bearden had autographed it to Coach Royal, mm-hmm. and I was wondering if they were friends, if Mr. Bearden and Coach Royal were friends, or if you remember when you autographed it for Coach Royal.
So the question here, sir, is this gentleman has your book, and he's read it. He says it's a great book, which I concur. And he said that that book was autographed to Coach Royal, Darrell Royal, and he wants to know if you and Coach Darrell Royal were friends.
Very good. I enjoyed, I got here, as soon as I got to the campus, I started chasing the girls, and the girls wound up with me being a cheerleader. So I spent 5 years as a cheerleader at the University of Texas. And so I didn't wind up getting a degree. That's okay. I don't know how that happened. But I wound up with a degree at the end of all my travesty.
And I understand you also were friends with Tom Landry when he went to the University of Texas, another veteran.
He was a fantastic football player and a heck of a good friend, and just a super guy, yeah. He's a lot more than just a football coach, for sure.
Next question, way in the back up there, hand up.
So I know Bob jumped in on the peninsula. I want to know what town he thought he jumped into, and then which beach did Mr. Marino come in on?
Okay, start with you, sir. The question was, what beach did you land on at Normandy? Do you remember what beach you were on and what time? Pretty specific.
Omaha Beach, I would say around between 6:30 and 7 in the morning.
And then, do you have and what was the question for Mr. Bearden? What time? You wanted to know what town you jumped in over.
What town?
Yes, sir.
If you ever find out, let me know. I had no idea where I landed. I was hoping it was France. But I missed so many drop zones by that time in practice that I was delighted to get my feet on the ground.
Yes, sir.
After he landed, how long was it before he met up with any Germans?
You wanted to know after you landed, how long was it before you met up with any of the German forces?
Well, they were shooting at me on the way down, so we almost got to be friends. So I don't know. I didn't have any waiting time to get ready to start playing combat infantry soldier, but I was so well trained, I was ready for anything, really. I thank my God and the United States government for training me, to prepare me to do what I did. And I was a heck of a good soldier. I was very proud of my military career, which was only 4 years, 11 months, and 20 days. But the government did a good job of training me, and I helped train many recruits coming in.
Next question. Yes, ma'am, right here.
Does the D in D-Day stand for anything? What is the significance of D-Day?
Do you know if the D stands for anything in D-Day?
All I can think of D-Day is the D's to die.
Yes, it does. It means, I think it's departure, is what the D stands for. I think that's correct. That it says departure.
Next question, ma'am, up there.
Just tell the gentleman that said he didn't know where he landed. I was very disappointed because I thought he was the one that kissed that pretty girl in Paris. That's the famous picture of the so beautiful Parisian girl.
The lady up there said she thought you had been in a photograph kissing a pretty girl in Paris.
Well, as a matter of fact, I waited some time and met a little country girl from East Texas named Debbie, and I've been with her ever since.
James, I have a question if you don't mind.
Yes.
Where's that voice coming from?
Yeah, I don't know where you are. Go ahead.
The film starts off with a letter from Dwight Eisenhower to all of the armed services, and I'm just wondering if either of these gentlemen actually received a copy of that letter, or if anybody even read it to them.
No, sir, I haven't received that.
First time you heard of the letter, huh? Word's not getting down to the troops, I guess. Sir, had you seen that letter that the film talked about from General Eisenhower?
I don't think I did. I don't think so.
Somebody probably told the Supreme Allied Commander they got the word, but I guess they didn't. Yes, this lady right here, young lady. Yes, ma'am. Question was, what was it like to be a prisoner of war? I know, sir, you avoided capture, but sir, you can tell us about that, please.
Well, really, I should have been prepared. As a kid, I locked up every other weekend for something. I guess I lived in Dallas, and I was well known to the juvenile department of Dallas. So I was really prepared to be a prisoner. But it's a drill that you get. You go in when you're captured, you become a prisoner. You go through a series of installations of captivity from one unit to another until you finally wind up in an official German prison. And I wound up in German Stalag 3C, about 15 miles east of Berlin. And if you got to be a German prisoner, that's a good place to land up as any place I know.
Next question, way up in the back corner up here. Yes.
Yes. Of all the medals that you've received, which is your most significant and why?
The question from the lady back there was, of all the medals you've received, which is the most significant and why? Mr. Marino.
Of all the medals that I have, and the medals that we receive are all significant. There's one we're very proud of, and that's the Good Conduct Medal.
Same question for you, sir. Of the medals that you earned, what is...
I spent 4 years, 11 months, and 20 days in the United States Army, and I never received a Good Conduct Medal. I'm not bragging, I'm not proud of it, but that's just the way I was a good soldier, though, but if you ask me what medal I'm most proud of, was the combat infantry.
And Mr. Marino has that as well. Next question from anybody, way up here, sir. This white shirt.
Reunions are a very big deal for comrades in arms. I know it is with our 101st Airborne Division, where we can just share stories with one another and hear stories from veterans and heroes like these gentlemen. Do you have any reunion stories?
Question is, do you have any stories about going to any reunions? And we'll start with you, Mr. Bearden.
To what?
Do you have any stories about going to any of your units' reunions? Have you gone to reunions?
I think I've been to one or two, and I loved it. And I recommend it to anybody who's in a military unit and your outfit's having a reunion, go. You'll meet some really, you'll reestablish some old friends, I think. I just love my experience there.
Sir, have you gone to any of your units' reunions?
No, sir, I've never had the opportunity to go to a 2nd Infantry Division reunion. I understand that right after the war, they had several, in fact, many reunions, but I never did get the opportunity to go on.
And you have a question?
Yes, as a French in Austin, I'd like to say thank you very, sorry. I've already moved. I'm second generation of French who live at peace, thanks to you. So thank you. And have you been back to France since then?
So the question, this young lady is from France and very moved by the sacrifice that you gentlemen and your fellow soldiers made that day. Her question is, have you had a chance to go back to France, sir?
I think I've been back 5 times. And I've never jumped again. But you're worth it. You're worth everything I paid.
Sir, have you ever had a chance to go back to France?
Not yet, but maybe someday I will. I just want to thank this young lady. I want to thank France, the people of France. The early days of the invasion, the farmers of Normandy and the areas around there fed us real well. I mean, they fed me real well. And I really appreciate those people for doing that, because our kitchens did not come in with the rest of the units. So all we had to eat was pay rations. But anytime a farmer would invite me to have a meal, I would gladly accept. And I just want to tell those people there that merci beaucoup.
Yes, sir. I recognize this gentleman, Mr. Hornfisher, who won't tell you, but he is a very prominent World War II author of numerous books. And so, sir, please ask your question.
I was very curious where you gentlemen were when Germany surrendered, and if you received at any point orders to go to the Pacific.
Mr. Marino, the question was, where were you when Germany surrendered? And the second part, did you have orders to go to the Pacific?
Our unit, the 2nd Infantry Division, right after the Battle of the Bulge, General Patton had a talk with General Eisenhower about dividing Germany in half. And to me, General Patton was one of the greatest generals that the Army had during that time in Europe. And he gave General Eisenhower, he showed General Eisenhower a plan that he had, and that was to split Germany in half. So Eisenhower told him to pick the divisions that he wanted, out of all the divisions. And he picked the 2nd Infantry Division as the head of that wedge. So our unit was one of the first units to run across the Nazi concentration camps, which we didn't know anything about. But what I saw there has stuck in my mind all these years. Of course, we couldn't stop and render aid to those people that were there yet. We had to keep going. So we went to Austria and to Pilsen, Czechoslovakia. And while liberating Pilsen, Czechoslovakia, May 8, 1945, the war ended. And the Czech people of the city threw a great party for us, and it lasted a week.
Sir, the question from Mr. Hornfisher was, where were you when Germany surrendered?
I think, I'm not positive, but I think that I was just down the road here at a fraternity house at the University of Texas.
Because you had been liberated by some of the Russian forces, correct?
The Russians overran the last prison I was in about X number of miles the other side of Berlin. And I didn't realize it, but I was hell-bent to get to the University of Texas, where I'd have the best time of my life.
Yes, sir, question right here.
Yes, sir. Which concentration camp did he talk about?
He wanted to know, sir, if you remember which concentration camp it was.
The first concentration camp that we came across was Hadamar. Hadamar, we later learned that it was called a murder factory because any Jewish person that was taken to that place would never leave there alive. And my mind has never gotten over what I saw at the concentration camps to this day. It's just something that I can't seem to forget.
See, next question, way up there in the back.
My grandfather was with the 3rd Infantry Division at Utah Beach on D-Day, and I just wonder if either one of these gentlemen ran into anybody from the 3rd Infantry Division, and even if not, thank you.
He starts off, wants to thank you, but also his grandfather was with the 3rd Infantry Division during the landing at Normandy, and wants to know if you ran across anybody ever from 3rd ID.
I couldn't tell you. I don't know what I had for breakfast.
Sir, Mr. Marino, anybody, did you run across any troops from the 3rd Infantry Division over there?
I saw several soldiers at Normandy with the 3rd Infantry Division insignia. Of course, I never did have any conversations with them, but I remember the 3rd Infantry Division. I mean, if I remember right, there was one occasion, I don't remember where, in Germany, I believe it was, that the 2nd Division fought alongside the 3rd Infantry Division.
Ma'am, you have a question?
No, this is not exactly my question. But I want to say thank you very much. Because for these people, me, I am not here. My grandma was burned in Auschwitz, alive. My grandpa was in one of the camps in Auschwitz. He was saved from America. And from, I can tell you the history of my grandpa because the area was the soldier. He was, I think he was on the ground, big guy, really, I don't know. He tells us this story when they opened that big cages by the side of area and tell us, you know what, we saw a bunch, we don't see people, we see bodies. The skeletons walk for one side and another one. By the side of my grandpa, he don't speak English. He speaks Jew or Hebrew or German. That's the only. He asked for my grandma, and what the cruelty of the Germans says, I want to ask where is my wife. And they tell them, did you see that big shield? He told him name. And they said, oh, but you see that big white smoking, probably is your wife. Thank you very much because my family is here. I am here. And thanks to the same thing, too many people like you and I got no the honor. But my people, Jew people, I thank you very much because you risked your life. And I think the Americans will receive more deaths.
You were worth it.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing that. What we're going to do is take a couple more questions, and then what we'll do is we will go adjourn to the 2nd floor lobby or near the Bob Bullock statue, and you'll have a chance to meet both of these gentlemen and get your pictures with them, shake their hand.
Buy a book.
Buy a book.
Buy a book, yeah.
So we'll take 2 more quick questions. Gentleman way in the back. Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, at the commencement of the D-Day operation, the President eloquently invoked the blessings of Almighty God for your protection and success in your endeavors. How frequently, till you were liberated from Europe, did you have an opportunity and a need to give thanks for that protection?
So his question was, in General Eisenhower's letter, which apparently neither one of you received, he, at the end of the letter, invokes the blessings of Almighty God and hopefully being successful in that evasion.
President, it was Roosevelt.
It was Roosevelt? I thought that was General Eisenhower's.
Roosevelt's prayer.
Okay. The question, though, is how often did you find the need to pray while you were there?
Did what?
How often did you find the need, or did you pray while
Pray?
you? Yes, sir.
The word is pray without ceasing.
Sir, sir. The question was about, did you feel the need to pray while you were there?
I'm proud to say that I'm a Christian. And I pray all the time.
Okay, last question. This young man here dressed in the Army cover. That's right. The young man told us a little bit of what he knows of General Patton, which is impressive. Thank you for sharing that. Not a lot of young men your age know about General Patton, so I think these gentlemen here definitely appreciate that. Thank you. We'll take one last question. Lady way in the back waving her hand. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my father was in the Army in the 354th Infantry, and he was my hero, just like you guys are down there. He was under General Patton, and I heard every day about him being one of the last troops liberating a concentration camp. My question to these gentlemen is, he was involved in the Battle of the Rhine River, at the Rhine River. Do they know anything about that battle?
The question was if you knew anything or had anything to do with the Battle of the Rhine River.
No, sir, I didn't.
And sir, I think I know the answer, but were you involved, or do you remember anything about the Battle of the Rhine River?
Thank God, no.
Real quick, before we adjourn, Mr. Bearden had asked me to share this little passage from his book, which I think is an appropriate way of closing. This is from the very end of his book, page 297. He said, I learned many things from my experience of the war, that mankind can be crueler than I ever could have imagined, that men will indeed give up their lives for a friend and share their last piece of bread with a hungry brother. Most of all, I learned that I have a responsibility to be genuinely thankful to all the men and women who have given their lives to defend this great country. Visiting military cemeteries overseas and seeing those miles of crosses on the graves, I realized that each body there interred had been a beloved son, father, brother, husband, uncle, or friend of a grieving family back in the United States. So, gentlemen, again, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for what you did that day. Thank you for honoring us with your presence. And we will look forward to talking to you up at the second floor area. But I think a standing ovation for these two gentlemen is in order.